the federal proposal is basically about structure. It is, in essence, saying that a centralized structure is better than the multi-jurisdictional structure we have today. It's all about architecture. We need also to be pretty clear about what is the purpose of securities regulation. And the purpose of securities regulation worldwide is very clear. It's to provide protection to investors from unfair, improper, and fraudulent actions, and foster fair and efficient markets. These are the two main objectives. And if you go around the world and see Securities Act, you'll find those two same objectives stated repeatedly. So let's go through the different points. The first comment is that was brought forward, which are the functional comments, is that the fairness of the Canadian securities market is impaired by deficiencies in the regime, and the quality of our regime, therefore securities markets in Canada, is significantly lower than what we see in other developed markets. So basically, the OECD does a survey every year, okay, or every 2 years. Canada comes out systematically number 2, number 3 in terms of quality. The International Monetary Fund, or the World Bank, did the same thing, does it across for 178 countries. Canada comes out 5th, okay? Other centralized common law countries, US is 7th, UK is 9th, Australia is 51 in the last survey. I would say to you 5 is not a bad score. So basically, if the international organization, the empirical evidence looking at the quality of our securities market in Canada gives it very high marks. Then the other issue is, in terms of fairness, efficiency, is how does the regulatory framework, in essence, protect investors from the position of either management in the companies or dominant shareholders. And that you find because dominant shareholder will be able to exploit, if you want, their position and have private benefits. So there's been a number of studies about those very issues on takeovers and so on. And basically, in terms of block premiums, so that was the way they went about to see if there were the shareholders were the dominant or shareholder would be extracting private benefits from it. Basically, we came out number 1 in terms of not being exploited, and in terms of voting premiums and so on, and takeovers, number 3 worldwide. Okay, so that in essence, if you look in terms of quantitative measures of what happens on the market, okay, we come out way above. So to the question, the quality, our architecture does a disservice to the country because it's the way it is in terms of quality of the market is not supported by the evidence. The second one is about, the other argument you'll hear is that in essence, because it's 10 provinces and so on, it's going to be very slow to adapt, okay? Well, the interesting thing here is that the IMF takes the principles and objectives of security regulation from IOSCO and goes about checking how the regulatory agencies in different countries are applying them. And when you look at the last score, Canada is the one that had the most of those implemented. By far better than the US with the SEC, centralized, better than Australia, which has centralized this thing. Okay? So Canada Securities Commission have been basically shown that they were quite keen to adopt best practices and do it fast. The other thing, yeah, but it takes time. Well, in one of the reports they say, well, it took so much time when the US imposed a freeze on, in essence, preventing short selling in financial institutions. Well, when you look at the dates when they were implemented, we were implemented exactly at the same time as the SEC brought it in force. There was no delay. Okay, so in essence, not only does the Securities Commission try to be best in class, if you want, when it's urgent to move, they have moved basically as fast or faster than most of the other securities regulations worldwide. The next one is, because of the securities system we have, the cost of equity in Canada, the cost of financing in Canada, is much higher than in other countries. And some of the reports basically go about saying that there is a premium that Canadian firms have to pay because of the structure of our securities commissions. The fact of the matter is that Bank of Canada, looking at that very point, says, A, we cannot find it. When we make the proper comparisons, there is no difference between the cost of equity in Canada and in the US. Now, one of the issues is that if the interest rates in Canada, because of inflation, are significantly higher, you'll have higher rates. But when they take that into account, basically their conclusion is that there is no change. As a matter of fact, we should say that there is a cost of equity discount in Canada compared to others. We're lower than the UK, which is centralized, lower than Australia, lower than New Zealand, which are all common law countries. Okay, so basically when things are done properly, and the Bank of Canada is not cheating, I guess, on this one, they come out pretty clear in their reports. There is no difference. The next one is really about enforcement. And that one is a very strong one. As a matter of fact, the press release announcing Securities Act says, well, the federal government is there to protect investors. And basically, this is really I will say, a seductive and a facile argument in the public debate. Because in essence, they try to portray it compared to the US. And one will understand that given our geography and so on. And as a matter of fact, the ratio of public enforcements in the US to Canada is about 18 to 10. Okay, so it's basically double what you would expect. And if you did it in terms of market capitalization, it would be also about double. But and therefore, there is much more enforcement actions in numbers in the US than there is in Canada. But the point is that if you look at the US compared to all other jurisdictions, the US is clearly internationally an outlier in the number of enforcement actions, but more importantly, it is the one jurisdiction that uses criminal law, criminal proceedings, at a substantially higher rate than any other country in the world. Okay?